You've tuned in to the Beyond Hope podcast, your access to success strategies and more to help you survive and thrive through your loved one's addiction challenges while you move onward and upward with your life. Now, here's your host, Shar Jones.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Shar Jones, and I'm the host of Beyond Hope. And I'm also the mother of an addict. So I understand what it means to love someone who struggles with addiction. It has been a very long journey for me, but I have gotten to a place of hope, beyond hope, which is kind of the ironic twist to the name, that I think really hope is where the healing begins. And on the other side of hope is life and joy and love and all these things that are no longer contingent upon the recovery of our addicts. So what I'm hoping to do with this podcast is bring to you so many people that I respect and admire, experts within the industry of addiction and recovery who have so much valuable information to share with me, with you, with all of us. And in addition, we'll be bringing you some stories of hope and hopefully some laughs, maybe some tears along the way, but it's going to be all good. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to this journey with you. Happy New Year, you guys. We made it. We made it to 2018, and I am so excited about this year. A lot of growing pains and lessons that needed to be learned. And of course, that's going to continue, but I feel like I've made some genuine progress, and I'm excited about that. This podcast by far has been the scariest and most empowering thing that I've ever done. And I just kind of sometimes have to stop and pinch myself. Just sitting with it and recognizing that I'm doing this. I am sharing my voice, and I am talking about things that are scary and uncomfortable, and that's okay, and that's good. Learning to share my voice has been the most important thing that I could have ever done for myself. And I have so many people to thank that have helped me with that. James Healy, you've just been such a blessing in my life, and I'm just so grateful to you for helping me launch this podcast. My husband, thank you for standing by me and supporting me and loving me no matter what, and never judging me. To my family, my daughter, of course, I just love her so much, and just watching her continue to find her own voice and celebrating who she is has been a complete blessing and honor to watch. And the Front Life Squad, Jessica Butts, and all the friendships that I've made there. Heather Fantine, Set Your Soul on Fire Tribe. There's been some transformational gifts that I have received from her. And all the people that just love me and support me and encourage me on this awkward, beautiful journey that I've been on. Thank you. For 2018, a couple of the things that I'm going to just keep top of mind for myself is to continue to stand up for myself and for my family, and to shine a light on difficult topics, and just continuing to remind myself not to worry what everybody else thinks about me, and to stay true to my own path and my own process and how I go about getting there, because it's very personal for everyone, and to honor myself through all my growth and change. And redefining what it means to feel beautiful. I'm almost 50. Sometimes I wake up and I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. And as women, I think have been defined for so long on our physical beauty. I'm challenging myself right now to take a closer look and to redefine what that means for myself. So those are some of the things that I'm going to be working on this year. Also just allowing more freedom and blessings into my life. And I recently started Beyond Hope Foundation, and I cannot wait to see what happens with that. I'm going to give that some more love and attention this year. And before we jump into today's show, I just have a few more shout outs. Bear with me. So I just want to thank all those who shared your voices with me on the show this year, for trusting me. Thank you. Thank you for your friendships and for just supporting me on my journey. And I also want to thank anybody who's out there listening to my voice right now. Thank you so much for tuning in and for sharing messages of hope with others who might need a hand. That's what we're here for, is just to continue to support and love each other through this journey. And thanks for being here. So for my last episode of the year, I'm excited to just kind of pull together some of my favorite pieces from all of my interviews and kind of button them up into one episode. And I hope you enjoy. And please, one of my hopes with this podcast is to share your voices. So if you have stories of hope or questions that you would like answered, or if you just want a friend, you can always reach out to me. You can text me at 206-229-0244. You can email me at shar@beyondhoperadio.com, or visit my Facebook group, the Beyond Hope Radio Facebook group. And I'm just sending you so much love. Happy New Year. And I look forward to talking with you again soon. Bye for now.
I have this visual of codependency like a tennis court, and lots of people will say, stay on your mat. And that's kind of where this originated from, is this idea, what's yours is yours. So if you think about a tennis court, there's two people on the tennis court playing a game. That can be anybody in your life. For you, it's your daughter. For me, it was my ex-husband. And then in codependency, it can be anybody moving forward, your daughter, your son, your parents, your siblings, your lover, your partner, anybody. And you guys are in a relationship together. And the two forms of codependency are, one, when one person on the side of the net lets the other person jump onto their side of the net and manage and control them. And what that looks like is that person loses their voice. They stop saying what they need to say. They stop standing up for themselves. They lose their ability to have opinions. They kind of lose themselves. If you think about that, very sad, and it's very codependent. I was this version. My ex-husband was a very strong personality, as well as a massive addict. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it. So I just shut up. I just went along to get along. If I'm being totally honest, there were times that I just drank with him because I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with it. So that is all of those are forms of codependency. Going along to get along, shushing, not standing up for yourself, not educating yourself. And I didn't have a voice. I had no voice because I just didn't know what to do until I started educating myself, of course. And then you get into this realization of like, oh, right, okay, I'm not the only one. So that's the first version. And I'd love your listeners to hopefully be able to identify which one they think they are. And then, of course, there's the other side, which is the guy or the girl who jumped on the other side of the net. They are the controllers. They are the managers. And I really want you to have this visual. If you can imagine, when that person jumps on the other side of the net to manage and control somebody else, it means that they've lost themselves. It's actually making me tear up thinking about it. And on that side of the net, they've abandoned themselves. There's nobody over there. They're not taking care of their own shit. Right? You know those people. This was my ex-husband. He didn't want to look at his addiction, so he sat around and managed and controlled me, because that's a heck of a lot easier than it is to look at your own stuff. And I'm not saying that all addicts are his side, but a lot of addiction is you don't want to look at your own stuff, so you blame and manage and control other people because you have abandoned yourself. And so we have to pay attention to who we are in this relationship and how we start basically staying on your own side of the net. Having your own opinions, having your own life, doing your own thing. You cannot change that person. No one can change anybody. And so when we try, it's just this futile effort. So that is the whole a concept of staying on your side of the net. I remember having conversations with him, and I would say what I needed to say very curtly and shortly and like not a lot of words. I would just say it. And then I would literally say in my head, Shar, stay on my side of the net, stay on my side of the net. Because it's all, let me control you. Let me try to manage you. Let me try to change your mind. Let me blah, 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 blah. No. I took the time to get clear that this is how I feel. This conversation is over unless you have something constructive to say. Because I have to stay on my side of the net. There's also this whole, I've taken a kind of another step of thinking about when you leave the court and you're up in the stands, you might be at the very, very top of the Wimbledon stands or something. And and that's called detachment, because there's healthy detachment, which is staying on your own side of the net. That's actually healthy. And it's also detached, but it's healthy detachment. Detachment is staying in the relationship and just being detached. You're not dealing with it. You're not dealing with that person, and you're not dealing with your own side of the net. That's not healthy either. And then there's also enmeshment, which, good God, we all know this. Jeez Louise. I don't think it's possible to actually be in a relationship at some point or another and not be enmeshed. But enmeshment looks like those two people on the court in the net together. They're all tangled up in it. Neither one is on their own side of the net. They're all, I think of it like a Twister game. They're all up in each other's business, and they're totally enmeshed and entangled in this net. And both of those are incredibly unhealthy. The only healthy view and the only healthy way to be is two healthy people being on their own side of the net. And let me just clarify that before we move on, is that it takes two healthy people. So when people try to get an addict to be healthy, as long as they're currently in their addiction, they're not. They're not. And when that's where we, as the codependent people trying to fix them, that's where we spin our wheels, right, Shar? I know you know this.
Oh, absolutely.
We spin our wheels because we're trying to reason with an unreasonable person. It doesn't mean they're a bad person, but their addiction has taken over. I know that feeling. I know every single one of your viewers knows that feeling. When you're healthy, trying to have like a rational conversation with an addict, and you're like, what's going on right now? Like, am I insane? Why
it feels that way?
Right? Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. And the visual of just leaving your side of the net, that is exactly where there's so much pain and heartache there. It's anybody who loves an addict, they understand what it means to totally abandon their life and trying to save this person. And it is sad and it is heartbreaking. And the really sad part is that they never even realize it, that there's a different way to live. There's life on the other side, like with certain tools that you can learn to live. It's absolutely no longer contingent upon the addict's recovery. Like, you can learn to live in a way that's healthy and joyful.
Right? And it's not a parent's job to get their 32-year-old child to care more, right? Parents are, at that stage, they're a resource guide.
Oh my gosh, wait a minute though, back up. That was huge what you just said. I think all of our moms need to hear that. So can you say that again?
Yeah, it's not a parent's job to get their child to care more, right? You can show them what care looks like by being a good example, right? But care also needs to come with boundaries, right? Care doesn't mean that I'm going to hug my child to death and just hope that they get better and inundate them with love. If that doesn't create a reference for your child to feel the love, if it just feels like pestering and lecturing, then they're not doing a good job trying to get their message across, right? So a challenge for a parent, I challenge all parents, is to say, well, how does my kid learn? What does he relate to? What did they listen to? And it may not be you.
Right? That's huge.
It may not be you. It may be somebody else, right? And yes, it's a tough pill to swallow for a parent. Okay? The last thing I liked hearing was being lectured from my parents. Were they right? Absolutely. Did I tell them they were right? No. I didn't want to agree with them. I had too much pride, right? But I listened to other people who would tell me that, I was an a-hole to my parents. And I was like, yeah, touche. Yep, you're right. So, and they taught me, and I realized over time, which this takes is time, is that it wasn't my parents' job to get me to care. It was mine. This is the way the real world works. The real world can chew you up and spit you back out. You think that once you get clean, that all of life's problems go away and that it's just easy. It's just not true. Really, treatment is supposed to prepare people for the real world. That's the real test. And if you have time on your side, the more time you can give your child as being a resource center, offering them resources to get help, hopefully the more disinteresting drug usage becomes. So the longer the treatment, hopefully the goal is the more disinteresting substances become. And if they flip up afterwards, hopefully they learn the tools to pick themselves back up. It is not the parents' job to do that. They are there as a resource guide. And that takes education.
And I'm coming to my own realization of everything that I thought I was doing right as a parent with addiction was wrong. What I was doing was interrupting her recovery. I was working harder on her recovery than she was. And I believed everything she said. Mom, I need $20 for $20 was like the magic number, right? I need $20 for gas. I need $20 for the doctor's copay that she probably never even went to. I need $20 because I need cigarettes or whatever the case may be. It was constant. But every situation seemed so desperate that I didn't want my child to suffer because I was so worried if she suffered, it could cause her to relapse. I was walking on eggshells and protecting. Or if she was in active addiction, I thought if I could just support her and give her these opportunities, like helping her find a job. And, oh my God, I would print out, pretty little sheets of AA meetings and articles of how to find a good sponsor. And it was just insanity. All of my days and nights were her. And from, yes, educating myself on addiction for sure. But we need to do that. But I was so codependent. I was stalking her, wanting to know, I was following her social media. I had a tracker on her car, on her phone. And I was just becoming this crazy, crazy person. And I let everything else go in my life. And I started isolating then myself. And when people would ask, how is Brittany doing? I didn't tell them, or I would stop showing up to things because I didn't want the questions to come up. And I was protecting her because I didn't want, I think, in my own frame of mind, I didn't want anyone to judge her. What if she got through this, right? Nobody needs to know. I didn't want her to be scarred for life that could be a potential, just a young adult mistake. But that's how uneducated I was, that it's truly a disease and it's a progressive disease.
And then being able to separate that fact from interpretation is really important because, like my dad left at 5 when I was 5, but that's all. That's the fact. Nothing else. I don't know why what happened between them, but he left. But the interpretations I made up about it is my suffering. That's my shame and guilt. That's where all that comes from, is those beliefs that I made up about it. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. So that's held me back all of my life. And that's also helped me feel shame. When we don't feel good enough, that's shame. Because that's no longer what I've done. Because guilt is about what we've done. Like, I can feel guilty for driving drunk. But shame is who I am because I was drunk.
Thank you for clarifying that. Between guilt and shame, I think that is such an important point to make. Because they start to blur together, right?
There's appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt. And that's another thing we go through in the forgiveness work is me learning the difference of that. I was holding so much inappropriate guilt. You know, for instance, it's like if I'm driving drunk, I should feel guilty if I hit something. But if I'm normal, not doing anything wrong, and I happen to hit something because a tire blew, I can feel sad or hurt because I damaged something. But I shouldn't feel guilty for it because I wasn't doing anything wrong. It's being aware of it, for one, is like me learning, oh, there's appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt. Oh my God.
Who knew?
Who knew? And that was like this gigantic aha, you know, the big light bulb that goes on, because it was amazing. And so just learning that really there's only a couple appropriate guilts. There's like 5 or 6 inappropriate, you know, like that, taking on, like parents, we do it all the time. We feel guilty for our kids' behavior. And, you know, unless we were a super bad parent, you know, we have no right. If we were a super bad parent, then, okay, we might have some guilt there. But for most of us, no. And when I understood that with my daughter, I went, oh. And I could feel it in my body just kind of start to like, oh, okay. Then what am I guilty for? Okay, I am guilty for, like I said, driving drunk. I drove with the kids in the car and I got in a couple accidents just in my own car. You know, I was grateful I didn't hurt anybody else. But when it came to my daughter's addiction, that's not mine. So forgiveness is where we start when we can break down our story and when we can start to illuminate a different light on, oh, maybe I didn't have anything to do with that behavior. Maybe I'm not responsible for what happened to me, but I am responsible for how I respond to it going forward. That right there is a huge part. And then kind of breaking those pieces into what is showing up in your life. Because some people don't know. Like they kind of know. Like I knew I had a pattern of picking the wrong guy. I knew I had a pattern of turning to other things, food, you know, alcohol, relationships for, you know, to escape. So I knew that, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so for one, identifying what is showing up in your life, who is showing up in your life. The rejection showing up in my life was me rejecting me. And really powerful. That is powerful. And so when we do that, when we become aware and we look at our story and we see, oh, these people were showing me something. What is that? And it's like, oh, let me bring back that lost self. Let me bring back that girl that had fun, was creative, and looked at life with joy. Because as a woman, I become more serious and I don't play. That was my story. Because really, when we're dealing with addiction in our family members or ourselves or anybody else, it's a lack of self-love. It's a lack of self-love. It's a lack of awareness of self because of something that happened. We learned along the way, but it's also a gift. And so that's what I like to help people look at is like, okay, yes, let's honor what happened to you because you are courageous and brave for going through and being alive today. You are. And our daughters are. And our families are. And so it's tapping into that and finding where's the gift? Where's the gift in that? And then finding the gift because the gift is within us. So what I like to do is I like to help bring people back home to them. We're always taught, especially as little girls, you need to help over here. You need to do this over there. And boys are taught, don't cry, be a man. A lot of us were shamed as children unintentionally. Our parents did the best they could. They actually did. They really did. And they were wounded. So what we can do is we can understand that we need to do some healing around it because you can't just go, oh, they did the best they can, so let me try to forgive. Because there still is that need to condemn there. There still is that you hurt me, so we get to heal that. Because each one of us, at the core, 99.9% of the time, are loving, compassionate, kind people. And those that turn to addiction, whether it's the codependent addiction or whether it's the alcohol addiction or drug addiction, is a beautiful, sensitive soul. Inside there is someone who doesn't know. They don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to deal with this big, huge emotion of life. And when we recognize that, then we can do the boundaries and we can set up a conversation and we can offer tools for both of us, to walk side by side versus pulling each other along or pushing each other. Because that's what it feels like. That's what it felt like with my daughter. I was pulling or pushing and she was resisting the whole time. It does get easier. And then I start to recognize behaviors quicker and faster and I have more tools. And so that's what helps, knowing it's a process. And it can be a real beautiful process. I'm going to tell you, it sucks while you're going through it sometimes.
Painful.
It is painful, but it's not for long. And each time that we go through a painful part, that painful part gets a little less and a little less and a little less. And the feeling good part gets a little more and a little more. It's beautiful. And I'm going to be better when I do that. And the more that I can do that for me, the more my family is really going to be able to celebrate too. Because whatever I change in me radiates out. It does. And it changes everyone around me.
That ripple effect is really, really powerful.
Yeah, because you talked about positivity. It's all in the energy field. It can just radiate out. We do make a difference. If we can just help one person, which is ourselves, we've helped the planet.
I've talked to lots of parents that they have some suspicions, and then I tell them, well, go to the drugstore, buy a drug test, and tell your kid to go pee in the cup and test them. You can get a drug test at any. I think they even have them in the supermarkets now. You can get them for under $20, I think, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, a lot. I'll hear, because I belong to a lot of moms groups, and I'll hear moms talk about being afraid to offend or whatever, and I'm like, in my experience, because I have definitely drug tested my daughter, and in my experience, she's never been concerned about taking a drug test when she's clean. I mean, really, it's like if they're, if they're going to pee dirty, that's usually the only time that they don't want to get the pee test. That's just my experience, but.
And I agree with you 100%. Any of us that aren't using drugs will be happy to pee in a cup anytime that you want. Mm-hmm. The only people that are going to be indignant about that are going to be the ones that are going to be dirty.
Exactly.
So, that I think that whole thing about, well, I don't want to offend my kid. Listen, okay? If you've got to offend your kid to save his life, then you better be willing to offend your kid, because this is ridiculous. That whole concept of, I think my kid's using, and he may be getting into some life-threatening drugs that may put him in prison or may take his life or her life, but I don't want to go test them and make sure because I don't want to offend them. That is the most asinine, ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. This is a life threat.
I was going to say, don't quote me, but yes, keep going.
But I've heard that. I don't want to offend them or they're going to get mad. And my thing is, so what?
Exactly.
So what if they get mad? Who's the parent here? So this is an interesting thing that you bring up, because there's almost like some kind of role reversal that happens when kids get into like all of a sudden the parents owe the kid some kind of, if you ask me, the kid owes the parent, like, look, I brought you up, I raised you, I supported you, I pay for your insurance, I pay for your food, I pay for your clothing, I pay, all these things. And you owe it to me to make sure that you're not spending my money or stealing from me or using illegal drugs that are against the laws of our society. And if you are, then there's going to be consequences for it. So this whole notion of like, well, I can't do it because they're going to be offended. If that's how you feel, then I guarantee you there's a problem.
Exactly.
There's a serious problem at that point. And I've heard lots of parents that are in those shoes. So what you're describing is a very, very common thing. And my thing is that's ridiculous. Test your kids.
I truly believe that the things, and it sounds cliche, but the things that don't kill us make us stronger. And I do believe so many of us who are leaders, we have to go through the muck, or else how else are we supposed to help others step up if we've never been there? Okay, so your path was set. I truly believe that. And your listeners might disagree, but I believe our path is set. And I do believe I had to go through everything I went through, and it wasn't pretty, to become the tough, what I like to say, badass light worker that I am now.
I love it when you say that.
I know. My podcast, I'm like, hello, badass. I've kind of changed it. So, and that's what's made me the coach that I am now, because I'm like, I'm not going to help you stay stuck. I'm not going to help you stay a victim. You will go back and say, I wish I could have done this as a mother, or done this better. And I'm going to tell you, your daughter is on her own journey as well. And me, so I am a medium and an intuitive, and that's part of my work. And over the years and the thousands and thousands of people I've connected with, it's always the same message, that this soul, so you are a separate soul from your daughter, and I'm separate from anyone else, and everything, we have this journey that we set out to do, to come down here and heal. And for myself, I believe we had this discussion with God, that's me, with source, creator, whoever it is that you believe in. And it's like, here, and it's no have-tos. We actually came down saying, I want to heal so that I can help others heal. So that's what we're doing. And now you're helping other mothers heal so that they can help others heal. It's beautiful. It's like, I call it the ripple effect. We have to let go of the I shoulda, coulda, woulda, whatever have-tos, because I can promise you that your child was on their own journey no matter what. No matter what you did, said, anything. I had the perfect, I really did. I had it set. People would say I have this perfect childhood, and it did not turn out the way that people would say was perfect. But it brought me to where I am now. Like, there's no way my parents would have saw me at 14, very promiscuous, binge drinking at 14, and running away at 14 for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, to where I am now. And I'm leading so many people. But it's because I had to go through this journey of forgiving and loving myself and realizing I am pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, you are.
We all are. And I want to just add one little thing here. So as I said earlier, we all go into relationships. We have this baggage, okay? So if you can look at it that when we're trying to please others, whether it's society, our boss, our parents, or child, we are actually trying to please someone that has their own baggage. So it kind of doesn't make sense. We're trying to please someone else that has their own baggage. So let's just start doing our own healing and realizing all the stuff. So that 6-year-old, how could I blame her? Which I did my whole life. I needed to have that conversation and say, you were a sweet little girl, innocent little girl. Why did you carry that? You didn't need to. And we had this conversation. Anyone that is dealing with addiction, whether it's a loved one, a child, spouse, I do know something very powerful to do that I'd like to share. And this is kind of off topic.
Oh, yes, please. Go for it.
A couple of things that I've learned, what I teach my clients. Number one, the vibration you put out there towards the situation feeds the situation. So if you're putting out worry, fear, and I get it, believe me, because there were months my parents didn't hear from me, and I'm sure that they were feeding that. And I'm not saying they were the cause of it, but I know the power of raising your vibration and sending out that feeling and that vision of, I see you healed. I see you loving life. I see you living fully, whatever that means, and sending that vibration out to someone who is quote unquote lost. I don't like that word because we're actually finding our way. And another thing that I have realized many years ago is that we have this massive spiritual team that wants to help us. We have angels and guides and so many beings of light. And as a mother, you have so much power that you can actually ask the angels, you can send them to your child who is struggling. Dad can send them to his children. Like, there's so much power. Send the angels, because the angels will go lift them up. They will help them get through things. Send the angels. They can do so much more than you can.
The martyr is really like a super codependent type of person, and they're all about fixing and helping others, and they think they're serving, right? So it's really kind of sneaky and hard to unravel, because it's flip sides of the same coin. If we're doing it in a healthy way, it's called serving or being altruistic. It doesn't have the emotional hooks in it that it does if we're on the fixing side or helping, because we're really trying to get some sort of value out of it. And the best way I can describe it is like, if you imagine that inside of you, you have a garden, right? And your garden's been trampled on, just emotionally, like people come into your life and they trample through your garden when you thought it was safe to invite them in. And that leaves kind of like a pain and trauma residue within you. And you start to enclose your garden, like build a shelter around it, and eventually you're blocking out like sunlight and all sorts of things, and you're like, I'm tired of my garden, I'm going to go and tend to somebody else's. It's not a conscious thing, of course. And so instead, we put all our focus into people around us and their garden and what it looks like and how it's doing, and pick that weed here and don't do that behavior. It will cause you pain and suffering like I had. And so we start to try to shelter other people from the imagined pain and suffering that we see is possible in life if we do certain behaviors or allow certain things. And so that martyr goes out and tends all of these other people's gardens and starts to feel drained and lost and caught up in these other people to where they don't even remember that they have their own garden or what their identity really looks like inside.
When I'm hungry, I eat. When I'm sad, I cry. When I'm tired, I sleep. But we have all these voices in our heads that are full of shoulds and shoulds nots and what's the right thing to do, because we were taught that there was this right way to be, right? This right thing to do. So if we get nurtured as a sense of self, and then we're more capable, and I think about love and capacity as intertwined, as an unbreakable seam between the two of them. If we get seen, if our self is okay, we're more apt, we're more capable of seeing it in other people. We're less inclined to think that we need to shape people up to be a certain right way. And ironically, because I think that feels terrifying to some people, it feels like a lack of control. Ironically, in that context, children and child development is enhanced and flourished. It's no guarantee, because there's no perfect cause and effect, but it is an ideal environment. It is an optimal environment to go in where your self is seen and where your parent has a sense of self. That's why my work with parents is, doesn't matter what the question is, almost what the question is. The answer is almost doing your own work as the foundation. The specifics to your question, the tools, the skills, the research, the techniques, those will follow. But the foundation, the bedrock of this work is doing your own work. And then from then, it's hard to get it wrong. But if you don't do your own work, it's hard to get it right.
I think we intuitively know what we need, and sometimes giving ourselves permission to do those things is our biggest barrier, because we feel guilty that if we have an extra 10 minutes, we want to be spending that time with a family member or doing something else that is on our to-do list. So I would encourage you to choose activities that do more than one thing. I call it stacking. So you stack different activities. For example, maybe you have not been moving your body, so you haven't been physically active. And you know that's an area that you need to invest some energy. And maybe your son or daughter, you've been trying to reconnect with them on a deeper level. Then maybe it's planning some hikes or walks together, because in that instance, you're actually supporting at least two, if not more, of your dimensions of self-care. So the more of those areas you can touch in the activities you choose, the more supportive you are of yourself. And I think that also helps us when we see that self-care is not a solo gig. I talk about that a lot. It is not, it's just me, it's just things that I do. A couple of my self-care activities have involved volunteering, a food bank, a community garden. Bring your son or daughter along if they're willing, and make it an activity you do together.
Really come to understand that there's no perfect way to do it. It's really what is going to work for you. Mm-hmm. So if that's just journaling, if that's just reading, or just meditating, or maybe 3 of those things, or maybe a quick visualization and journaling, or a combination of any of them, really is going to be fine. It's going to be perfect for what you need. So starting small is definitely what I would say to anybody who is feeling like they just don't have 5 minutes to get it done, because the impact is huge in your life, definitely huge. And so it's really worth it. And I think for me, what I found quickly when I was manifesting things like Mr. Agreeable in my husband, or this closer connection that he and I had, or just more calm with my kids, more patience. When I was finding those things happening in my life, I knew how valuable the morning practice was. And so it just kind of reaffirmed everything and made me want to make it longer and longer and longer.
One of my sponsors told me, Sean, this was before I had this beautiful smile, before I had these dentures, was that it's going to be the 64th job that you apply for that you're going to get. But if you don't apply up until that point, you're not going to get them. And thank God that man was in my life and many others to tell me that type of stuff, because it's hard. You come in and you come into recovery, and you already have so many roadblocks. So we come in and we feel very abandoned. We feel we're full of shame. We're full of guilt. How do we move past that? Here's this huge mountain that I'm just looking at, and I'm like, oh man, that the top is no way. It's hard. It's really hard. It's hard I'll just speak for myself. It was very hard. And I think this isn't my first go round. Like I said, my first treatment was 15 years old. I believe I volunteered to put myself through treatment at one point. 3 days in, I walked out. Yeah. And then the last treatment center I would have gotten an escape charge or prison if I didn't go. So I went. But how do you really get past those things? How does someone really recover when they feel their family has abandoned them, when they feel society has abandoned them? Now, this isn't blame. By all means, this isn't blame. I accept personal responsibility for my whole life. Every time I used, all the consequences, I accept that responsibility. What I want to share is the shame and the guilt and how hard that really is to overcome, to look your family back in the eye, because how many times have they heard, I'm not going to use again? I'm going to quit this time. This time's different. what do you do, right? So speaking from the addict, I had to learn that it is unacceptable for me to even believe that my family should just wrap their arms around me right away and say, good job, you're clean. Thanks for cleaning our house out last time and pawning it, because that's the reality of where I go with that. The addict part is do the work, keep moving forward, and everything will come together in the end. And even if it doesn't, you still have to move forward if you want to walk this journey of recovery.
Not only was I battling with my children who are addicted, but I was also diagnosed with cancer in 2010. And so I was going through cancer treatments and chemo, and I was honestly, I had more focus on my addicted children than I did on my own life. And so it was super hard for me. It exhausted me. I was sick. I couldn't get out of bed. And, when I think back on the whole situation, I had lost myself in their addiction. I mean, I didn't even care if I survived a deadly disease. I was more focused on getting them better. And I think that it really took me just hitting a point where I had to realize that I couldn't rescue them. They didn't want to be rescued. And so I couldn't rescue them. And so I had to learn that for the protection of my own emotional body. And it's like I had to change my perception of, from the things that I hoped would happen to being more open to like the experiences of whatever actually happened. And so I guess if I was to talk to one mom out there, I would say that you have to take time for yourself. If we don't take time for ourselves, we can't fill up that cup that we need. We don't, we have to build our strength again to go back into battle. But to remember, it's not our battle. And just to, be able to, I hear a lot of moms say, how do you distinguish between enabling and tough love? And I'm not a believer in tough love. I think that love should be one of those easy things, but there is a fine line between enabling the addict and loving them. And I have found that in loving them, helping them to find a purpose, that's all they need is a purpose. We don't know why they became that addict. It could be something very traumatic that happened in their life, or it may not. We don't know that. But, just moms, remember to take care of yourselves. We can't fight a battle if we're not strong. And the other thing is, to find your passion. Find something you're passionate about, and you'll find that when you get down and you're beat up by the actions of your addict, that if you have a passion, you can refocus on that passion. You can kind of focus your energies into something more productive. Maybe it'll make you feel better, build you up, obviously give you strength, because when you're dealing with addicts, it is a constant battle. I get really frustrated at moms who say I'm giving up on hope. And that just saddens me, because hope is something that is always alive, always alive. And one of my favorite things is that hope is not a wish, it is a belief. And we have to believe in hope.
And it's the knock on the door that nobody can prepare for. So as strong as I was, and I had the beast at bay, and I had, things going well, I every single morning I would pray for a miracle for my daughter, and then I would let her go. And I believed for that miracle. And so when I got that knock on the door, it pretty much knocked me right back down to the mat. But I knew that it also wasn't going to be Jamie's legacy, that the end of Jamie's story was not going to be a girl who was murdered. The end of her story is not going to be an unsolved murder. And the end of her story is not going to be, that she was a junkie, an addict. Because just like me, I'm the mom of an addict, but I'm a whole lot more, and Jamie was a whole lot more too. So now I carry her with me. I feel her with me. Obviously, I have a hole in my heart, and I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life. And I'm aware of that, and I'm okay with it. I can do it. And so I just want to help as many people as I possibly can to stand up and fight to get their lives back, to become women of courage, and basically just to lead the way. We keep telling people, where's your rock bottom? Stand up and fight. Get battle this addiction beast. At the same time, we're self-destructing.
I remember when people would tell me that, my daughter is an adult, she's old enough to take care of herself, that I need to worry about myself, all of these things, to let go and let God, to go to an Al-Anon meeting. All of these things didn't land with me in a positive way. And I know that they were intended to be helpful, but it was more painful for me to hear these things because I just didn't know any better. It felt insulting. It felt like I was being asked to abandon my daughter. I felt like a failure as a mother. The truth is that I have loved my daughter with all of my heart since she first came into this world. I fell in love with her when she was in my belly. All of the things that I wanted for her are still possible. But this addiction is part of our journey. Her addiction is part of her story, and it's part of my story. And yes, people in your life are not going to understand your hurt. And that's not for you to try to explain to them. Your job right now is to reach out to people who understand what you're going through, to get the help that you need. And I'm here for you. I'm just sending you so much love. And with the holidays coming around the corner, I know that creates a lot of stress and sadness for people who are trying to recreate traditions and memories from long ago, a different life. And things happen in life: divorce, death, heartache. All these things can interfere with our ability to be joyful during the holidays. My thought about this is to consider finding some new ways to celebrate the holidays, create some new traditions that celebrate you and your life today. And every day that we get a chance to open our eyes is a gift. If you're suffering, that's not why you're here. You're not here to suffer. Please know that I'm just sending you so much love, and I'll talk with you soon. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and for helping me to connect with other moms of addicts or loved ones who are struggling with addiction in their lives. If you have questions for me, comments, suggestions on future show content, or perhaps there's a specific topic that you would like to hear from an expert in the field, I would love to hear from you. I am also interested in sharing your voice. So if you have messages of hope or personal stories that you think would resonate with our listeners, please send me an email. You can type me out a message, or you can include an attachment to an audio clip with your voice. You can send that to Shar at beyondhoperadio.com. And with that, thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Hope. For show notes and more, head on over to beyondhoperadio.com.
A huge thank you to recoveryinnovators.com and James Healy. Thank you so much for putting up with me and for helping me to produce and launch the show. I couldn't have done it without you. You are so awesome. And to anybody else who has been considering working with James, highly recommend him. Please go over to his website and check it out, recoveryinnovators.com.